Anissa, and I'm a senior here at Trinity. I am pleased to have the honor of introducing two great environmental champions on our next panel. First, I will introduce Dr. Kandis Boyd. In June 2022, Dr. Kandis Boyd became the director of the Chesapeake Bay Program for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Dr. Boyd previously served as a strategic advisor for the National Science Foundation's Office of Equity and Civil Rights, and before that she was Deputy Division Director of the Anissa Division of Grants and Agreements. She earned her undergraduate degree in meteorology from Iowa State University, where she was the first Black woman in that program. And she went on to earn master's degrees from Iowa State and George Washington Universities, and her PhD from Northwest Southeastern University. She has an impressive track record of achievement, including numerous scholarly publications and a real commitment to mentoring students. Her appointment received wide acclaim because of her reputation as a real champion for ensuring the long-term health of the Chesapeake Bay. EPA's Chesapeake Bay program coordinates activities and implements strategies for meeting the restoration goals of the Chesapeake Bay watershed, which covers 64,000 square miles across New York, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. Please help me welcome Dr. Kandis Boyd. Our second speaker will be Nancy Stoner. Nancy Stoner is president of Potomac Riverkeeper Network, a well-known advocate for protecting the health of the Potomac River. Previously, Ms. Stoner was the water program director and senior fellow for the Pisces Foundation, where she developed a foundation strategy to protect freshwater resources in the U.S. A lawyer by background, Ms. Stoner previously worked in the Environmental and Natural Resources Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, and she later served as acting assistant administrator for water with the Environmental Protection Agency. Ms. Stoner graduated from the University of Virginia with her BA, with highest distinction and membership in Phi Beta Kappa. She went on to earn her law degree at Yale. Please help me welcome Ms. Nancy Stoner.
Well, first of all, good afternoon, and I have to say thank you. That was such a wonderful introduction. And I also want to say thank you to everyone who decided to stay past 3 p.m. We all know what the traffic is like in Washington, D.C. area, so hopefully you're staying for the reception. And also thank you to the choir, because this is such a wonderful celebration of 125 years. And if I just take a moment of personal privilege, to see so many people in the room that look like you is inspiring. So I am inspired by what I see today. So thank you so much for allowing me to come today. As you heard, I am recently the new director of EPA's Chesapeake Bay program. So I have a couple of slides because I know that we are live streaming this and we have both the virtual world and the in-person world as well. But I would like to just tell you a little bit about my story, because I heard, or I was able to listen to the previous panel, and a lot of the things that they said resonated with me, because it wasn't that long ago that I was in that space. And I'm actually standing up here with you today as the director of the Chesapeake Bay program because of an internship, and I heard them talk about that as well. So let me just take a couple moments to give you a little bit about my background. So my degrees are in agricultural meteorology, water resources, and public administration. Probably the three furthest realms of education that you could probably think of, because water resources is where we talked about policy, ethics, and then also civil engineering. Then you add agricultural meteorology, and then you add public administration. So I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and when I was young, my family moved to the suburbs. And during that time, which is like the 70s, we had what we were calling, urban flight, meaning people were moving from the city, moving to the suburbs, and you had these new up-and-coming subdivisions that were being built. They called them cookie-cutter communities, where you had walkable communities, you had a playground every 5 blocks, and it was very structured. Well, what they did realize is that they had to usurp, or they had to buy, a lot of the farmland in this area in order to create these new subdivisions. So most of the farms sold their farm to these new subdivisions, but there was one, at least in my area, that did not. And the name of that farm was Regal Farm. And so what's important about Regal Farm is that instead of shunning all these new communities that are up and coming around them, because we literally surrounded the farm, they embraced us. And they started creating programs for people who look like me. Programs like, what is it like to take care of livestock? What does it mean to go and get food and actually change or move food from a field to food on the table? What does it mean to have sustainable practices that help the environment? And I don't even know if the word environmental science was actually coined back then, but it's because of those programs that I learned to respect, appreciate, and get excited about the environment. And that's what led me to attend Iowa State University and major in agricultural meteorology. And so originally I wanted to be an on-air meteorologist, but I was told during an internship that I didn't meet the demographic. So what I thought was the most damaging, career-ending statement actually turned out to be the best turning point in my career. Because then I started working for this organization. You might have heard of them, the National Weather Service. Yeah, actually. And I was literally sitting in a class. The meteorologist in charge came to the class, talked to us about 5 minutes, and he said, yeah, I just want to let you know we have summer internships. They're about $10 an hour. You can get college credit, and it can help you learn more about the thermodynamics that you're learning in this class right now. I didn't hear any of that. What I heard was $10 an hour. So fact check me, but back in the 90s, and yes, I don't mind telling you my age, but back in the 90s, I think the minimum wage was like $4 an hour. So what registers to me is I can get totally down to go and participate in this internship. So I stand up at the end of the class, I walk to the front of the room, I stick out my hand, and I say, hi, I'm Kandis, and I'd like to be your next intern. And 28 years later, I'm still a member of the federal government, and I now serve as the director of the Chesapeake Bay program. Wow. If I leave you with nothing else, is that dreams do come true. Maybe I'm not in front of a chroma key and I'm getting the forecast, but you better believe that on a daily basis, I'm communicating and I'm telling people about the environment. And that was my goal 28 years ago. So, let me tell you now a little bit about the Chesapeake Bay program and why I think it's so special and how it directly relates to environmental justice. So, as you can see here, the Chesapeake Bay is 64,000 square miles. I think that was said in our introduction. But what you may not know is that in the first 4 months that I've been in this position, I have traveled to all of the states that encompass the Chesapeake Bay, with the exception of New York. I'm going to get there in a couple of weeks. And I have attended over 50 external events. Now, why is that important? Well, especially when we're talking about environmental justice, the watershed or the Chesapeake Bay is different depending on where you are on the watershed. We're here in Washington, D.C., a very urbanized area. But if you drive just an hour and a half north of Pennsylvania, very agricultural. But if you drive 2 hours south to Norfolk, Virginia, where the mouth of the bay meets the Atlantic, it's very water-based. And understanding all of those differences is really important, but also understanding that the people in each of those spaces has a right to be heard. We need to have people at the table to talk about what the future of our environment looks like, and that in itself is environmental justice. So the EPA, I'm really proud to say this, that we just created an office strictly for this. Now, it's called the Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights. I know that's a long phrase, but the whole point is to take a look, not only at the Chesapeake Bay and the watershed, but our entire United States, and then also our role in the global environment as well. And what can we do to make sustainable practices and make this environment more equitable and inclusive for all of us? Okay, so let me keep going. So achievements. So what you see on this picture, especially for those in the virtual environment, is that in Chesapeake Bay, when most people in this area think about it, they think about water, or they think about water quality. And yes, that's very important. What people don't know is that the Chesapeake Bay has 10 goals and 31 outcomes. And water quality is just one of those goals. Some of the other goals include sustainability, climate, public access, which again ties directly to environmental justice, because we want people to have access to the Chesapeake Bay. And so as you can see here, we are doing the work to try and restore the bay. We call ourselves where science meets policy. And there's three main components of the Chesapeake Bay that drives our daily activities. That's science, that's restoration, and that's also partnership. So keep in mind that the Chesapeake Bay has pollutants that are actually causing it to deteriorate. And we have tracked those pollutants back 40 years. But the other side of the coin is we have a partnership that will celebrate 40 years of success. And that partnership has shown verifiably that because of that partnership, we are better off now than we were if we didn't have that partnership. So what's another way of saying that? We have worked really hard in 40 years to eradicate over 400 years of pollutants. And that, again, stems directly toward and with environmental justice. Okay, so I talked about challenges. I think some of the challenges that we have to think about with the environmental justice piece is that we need more voices at the table. So I'm so glad that there's actually a discipline that's focused on environmental justice. Because trust me, many hands make light work. So we need each and every one of these. And what I really want to emphasize is that even though we are talking about environmental justice, at least at the Chesapeake Bay program, we have over 100 experts and enthusiasts and scientists and specialists, and not all of us have a background in environmental justice. I'm a perfect example of that. But we all have a focus and a passion for restoring the bay. So that means if you have a background in budget, if you have a background in modeling, if you have a background in policy, there is a place for you at the Chesapeake Bay and Chesapeake Bay program. So for those of you who are looking for an opportunity, maybe in the next weeks or months to come, either as an internship or even a permanent position, I really encourage you to consider the Chesapeake Bay. So we have a table at the back, and you can see that Bo, who is one of our experts here. You can talk to him about the Chesapeake Bay and your future in the Chesapeake Bay as well. But then also talk about, what's your passion in terms of environmental justice and how can we serve your needs. So with that, I want to say thank you so much. It's always an honor and a pleasure speaking to you about the Chesapeake Bay. But I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Nancy Stone. Thanks.
What an honor it is to be here at Trinity University for this Environmental Justice Symposium and to speak after Dr. Kandis Boyd. Isn't she fantastic? Dr. Boyd has been out and about more than anyone I have ever seen in this position, and I've been working in the environmental world since 1987, and she really walks the walk. She's out talking to people all the time about how to do her job better, what they really care about, and how the EPA can serve the public. So we need more people like her, but we are very, very lucky to have Dr. Boyd running that office. She's been out on our boat. I think I probably get to our boat at some point, which is at National Harbor, which I will tell you about. And if I forget, raise your hand and tell me. What about the boat, Nancy? So that I'll tell you about the boat. I also want to thank Jessica Tumex, who was on the last panel. So she mentioned the name of the Potomac Riverkeeper Network, I think 18 times in her presentation. She is smart as a whip. She is a fantastic intern. And so one of my goals here today is to get someone just like Jessica to be our next intern. And she moves on to something. So I'm going to move into the presentation. So one of the things that I like to do when I talk about the river is to show pictures. And I like to show pictures because we have a beautiful, beautiful river in the Potomac River. And we also protect the Shenandoah, and that's also a beautiful river. And I have yet to meet any person on earth that doesn't prefer to have a clean river to a polluted river. So I already know that you guys are already part of our team because every person wants a clean river. So I'm going to show you some beautiful pictures. I'm going to show you some ugly pictures, but my goal is to get you engaged with our organization and similar organizations throughout the watershed that are working to make this river clean, swimmable, fishable, drinkable for every American. And to me, that is what environmental justice is. All right, so the first picture right there is Great Falls. How many people have been to Great Falls? Fantastic. All right, anyone who hasn't been there, it is right near Washington, and you do actually have a car to get there for a ride, but it is one of the most beautiful places. We have the best white water outside of DC of any urban city in the United States, and so please go out there. Don't get in a kayak unless you really know what you're doing, but it's totally beautiful there. So I want to tell you first what the Potomac Riverkeeper Network is. And we are part of an international organization called the Waterkeeper Alliance that has riverkeepers, coast keepers, lake keepers, and so forth all around the world. And we all share a lot of characteristics, and I'm going to tell you about that. But our mission is to protect the public's right to clean water, every one of you, and your right to clean water in both the Potomac and the Shenandoah. And we do that by stopping pollution and by enhancing access. And we do it for the people, so that people have the use and enjoyment of the rivers. So you'll see the three pictures here. On the left is the Shenandoah Riverkeeper taking a water quality sample. That's one of the things that Jessica has been involved in as an intern with the Potomac Riverkeeper Network. The middle picture is our boat. So this is our research vessel, and this is where we have our lab, our water quality monitoring lab at National Harbor. And on the right is the Upper Potomac Riverkeeper. He's using a drone to find where pollution is coming from. He can find the source using a drone. He's the world's expert in that for the Waterkeeper Alliance. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? So here's our watershed. So every riverkeeper around the world has a particular watershed they protect. So our watershed is very diverse, like Dr. Boyd was saying, the Chesapeake Bay, and it starts way up in the mountains of West Virginia and in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, which is actually where I grew up and where I became inspired to protect rivers. And it goes all the way down to the Chesapeake Bay. And it is a beautiful, beautiful river and watershed. So the first picture is Key Bridge, and all these people who are out on stand-up paddleboards enjoying Key Bridge. The top right is dolphins. How many knew there were dolphins in the Potomac River? Not very many. Well, if you go downriver, there are now about 2,000 dolphins in the Potomac River. They used to be here, and then when it got so polluted that there weren't any fish, they left, and now that it's revived, they are back. and we are really enjoying seeing them when we go downriver. And then there's a small outlet. So how many are anglers? Not very many. Okay, we need to get you out there. So we did have an event this year, and yes, it helped with this Rio Palooza that had fishing instruction. So you can come and get fishing instruction, snorkeling, all kinds of things at our events. Okay, so here's a little bit more about what a Riverkeeper is. Again, we're part of this international organization, and the international organization has a specific standard on diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice to make sure that all Riverkeepers are representing their communities, all the communities that they have in their work. We are advocates, that's what we do. We do assessment like water quality monitoring, advocacy, and enforcement. We figure out where the pollution is coming from and how to stop it. That is our goal. The picture is the Potomac Riverkeeper, and he's at a coal-fired power plant called Morgantown. We have done our very best to address a lot of the contamination caused by these plants. You probably know they add to global warming. Well, they also add to water pollution, groundwater pollution, and we have been very engaged in working on both sides of the river in protecting the people who live around these plants. That's environmental justice. So you can start earlier with this. I could have a clean picture that's when the indigenous people were here, the rivers were beautiful. But I started here in 1973, right after the passage of the Clean Water Act. President Johnson, who most of you are probably not old enough to remember, but he said that the Potomac was a national disgrace, that it was filled with rotting algae and dead fish and so forth. And it was true. This picture is of the Georgetown waterfront and the muddy brown, horrible color that it was at that time. Well, what you might not know is that there are still raw sewage discharges into the Georgetown waterfront that come from the sewer system. It's called a combined sewer system, and it overflows when it rains. DC is committed to fixing that problem by 2030, and by 2030, we think it will be safe to swim in that water as a result. The Clean Water Act is our best tool. It was the birthday of the Clean Water Act earlier this year. It's 50, middle-aged, and may need some updating, but has done some fabulous work on the Potomac and many other rivers across the country. So, in addition to saying how dirty the river was, the other thing President Johnson said was that the Potomac, since it flows through the nation's capital, should serve as a model of scenic and recreational values for the whole country. So that, again, is very important to us. We want this to be a model. People come from around the world to visit Washington, D.C. We want them to see a clean river and know that we have made that river cleaner through the work that we've done together. What a beautiful picture of the tidal basin. So here's some of the things that we've accomplished. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but it gives you an idea. Sewage pollution, we have worked to stop that in Alexandria as well as DC. I mentioned the coal ash already from the power plants. We have gotten 80% of the herds of cattle out of the Shenandoah. If you have ever been in the water where there's a herd of cattle, let's just say it's unpleasant. And we have been working very hard to get them out of there and have made a huge amount of progress. We have a community science water quality monitoring program. Again, that's what that vessel Sea Dog has our lab for, and what Jessica participated in, and which you could participate in if you were an intern with us. We stopped a frac gas pipeline in Maryland as well as in Virginia. And then another thing that I thought might be interesting to you from a environmental justice perspective is Virginia was going to levy a fee on every person who got in a boat on the river. And we said, well, that doesn't encourage people to use the river, does it? So we stopped that fee. Our 4 key campaigns for this year are Swimmable Potomac. We want the water to be safe for people to swim, and we want to have public access points designated where there are no swimming hazards, where the water is safe. We want it tested daily. We want the results available, like a flag system that says it's safe or it isn't safe. We think it's going to be safe almost all the time, again, by 2030. So that's our Swimmable Potomac campaign. We also have a Respect the Shenandoah campaign. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, and getting the algae out. We had toxic algae in the Shenandoah last summer, not this past summer, but a year ago. They closed 52 miles of the North Fork of the Shenandoah. Toxic algae is the kind that your dog will die if your dog swims in the river with toxic algae. So you do not want that. It comes from agricultural pollution. We are doing the monitoring that we have not yet been able to get others to do on toxic algae so that the public is informed and we can address that problem. We have a trash-free Shenandoah and Potomac campaign. You can get involved, get your hands dirty, get out there, help us pick up the trash, and then help us stop the sources of plastic pollution so that we don't have to keep picking it up for the rest of our lives. And the 50 Million Mussels campaign. This is a picture of freshwater mussels. These are mussels that are native to the Potomac River. They, like oysters, are filter feeders and help us clean up the pollution in the river so we'll be cleaning it. Swimmable Potomac, I mentioned it already. Our goal is safe swimming for everyone in the Potomac River. The picture on the left is a sign that says something along the lines of, watch out, raw sewage flows into the water here periodically. It doesn't tell you exactly when, but the when is after it rains. And so we've been doing the monitoring so you have the specific information about whether or not it's safe to go in the water. That is on a smartphone app called Swim Guide. Swim Guide. You can use it anywhere in the world. So put that on your phone. It's much better than all those other apps we have. And it's look to see whether or not it's safe to go in the water. I want to tell you the story of this picture on the right. It's not a very clear picture. The Potomac Riverkeeper was out with his stand-up paddleboard and his wife and his daughter over by Belhaven Marina, which is where he lives. They were having a great time. It was not raining, but it had rained earlier in the day. And all of a sudden, they opened the floodgates and a huge torrent of raw sewage came toward him. This is what it looked like. He and his wife and his daughter picked up their stand-up paddleboards, hightailed it out of the river, and he turned around and snapped this picture. This is not from 1970s. This is from 2 years ago. This is a current problem in the Potomac River. So we need to stop this. DC is on the hook to do so. Alexandria is on the hook to do so. Please support them in doing that good work. And so this is a report that we did about the water quality monitoring, the results we're getting so far. The picture is a picture, a real picture on the left of the tidal basin and the platforms that used to be there. There used to be swimming in the tidal basin from 1918 to 1925. It was stopped not because of pollution, but because of a disagreement in Congress as to whether or not Black people should have a place to swim. It was a whites-only swimming area. And when there were some people who would not even pay to have a separate, segregated beach for Black people to have a place to swim, others said, then we'll shut them all down. And they did. And we haven't had any swimming since 1925. Now, obviously, it's bad to have no swimming. It's worse to have swimming that excludes members of the public. We want to have safe swimming for everyone, and that's our goal, that's our vision. We want you to be a part of it. And this is just to show you a little bit of the details about what it is that we do. So these are spots that we monitor all along the Potomac. And then the green shows you how often they currently meet public health standards, and red is how often they fail. I know you can't read the details of this, but you don't need to read the details of it because you can go on our website and you can look for the Swimmable Potomac report and get the details. But there are places where it is safe to swim 90 or 95% of the time or more now, and it will be even safer by 2030. So our vision is to transform ourselves and our environment from the inside out, to move from from equality or pro-equity to environmental justice, and to listen to and invest in communities around the river. This is one of the events we have that involves snorkeling in the river. How many have been snorkeling in a river? You have. That's fantastic. Almost nobody knows what that boat has in the back. Bo Williams used to also be an intern with us, and he was a high-ranking official. We have snorkeling mission every year. You are all invited to come. It is fantastic. It's not quite like a coral reef, but you see all these little fish in there. It is super cool. Super cool. We have our own Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion policy that applies to our board and our staff and our workplace culture, our programming, our partners, and our outreach. This is one of our Riverkeepers programs that we have where we go out rafting at Harper's Ferry. So how do you get involved in this? So one of the ways to get involved is to speak out, right? That's one of the ways to get involved. So I mentioned stopping pipelines. The bottom of the picture is that. The top is a climate rally, climate and water, of course, are very closely related. The left is actually a picture from the 1980s for efforts that people were making to clean up the Potomac at that time. Make your voice heard. Get involved in stream cleanups. I mentioned them already. We have one at National Harbor and one at Alexandria Waterfront every month. You can get involved in doing water quality monitoring and helping us protect the river. You can join a team called Rapid Response where you can investigate pollution incidents. Again, Jessica, best source on all of that, ask her. She has done a huge amount of this and she can tell you all about it. And then we have fun. So if you are not having fun enjoying the river, you are missing a big piece of what you should be spending your time on in life. You should be out in a kayak, you should be on a raft. These people are looking into the water with magnifying glasses. We have these events called Riverkeepers and Riverkeepers. You can sign up and come out with us. We make it easy for you. We do it all for you. You just show up and the Riverkeeper will tell you all about the river. It's super cool. And we want you to be part of it. So, let me say it again, we have a paid internship, kind of like what Dr. Boyd was saying she did when she was young, and Jessica is doing right now. So if you are a student or if you know a student at Trinity University who would like to be our next intern, please come join us. This is a picture that has Jessica at Shark Fest, which is an open water swimming event that we do at National Harbor. We had over 100 people swimming in the Potomac at this event after we check the water quality and make sure it's up. But if you don't choose to become an intern, you can become a riverkeeper, you can become an environmental lawyer, you can become a scientist, you can do all kinds of things to help protect rivers. And the most important thing that you do is to follow your heart. Because you're going to spend a lot of time working, or you may have already spent a lot of time working, and now you're spending a lot of time in your retirement with things that you want to do. And follow your heart, because that's what makes life worth living. So our rivers are on the rebound. They used to be super, super dirty and dangerous. They're getting better all the time, and you can be a part of it. Join us and help clean up the rivers. And that's what I've done. The Potomac and the Shenandoah are ours to save. They're beautiful. So thank you so much for having me.
Nancy, thank you so much. Kandis, thank you so much. Aren't they great? I'm excited. I'm going to go get in my kayak and get out of the river right now. And Anissa, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. So we have a few minutes left before we go down to reset. Have a glass of wine down the hall, or whatever you prefer. So are there comments or questions for Kandis or Nancy, or other comments? Yes?
My question is for Nancy. I live on Skinny Alice Lake in Finger Lakes, And we have 2 land trust organizations in our area. There's a group that's been cleaning up Onondaga Lake, which Syracuse is on, so Syracuse got a little closest. Anything that looks like a city. You can't say a city, but it looks like it. There's an organization, it's not a land trust, but it's called the Skinny Alliance, the Skinny Lake Alliance, and it keeps after Skinny Lake, which I have to tell you, I never tell people to come and see it because we don't know the secret to get out, but it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pond and beautiful lake. So my question to you is, would there be any advantage for our groups to align with your group?
So the Riverkeepers all work in a particular geography. By the way, I used to live in Syracuse when I was a little girl. And back in that day, Onondaga Lake was so polluted that when we drove by it in the car, we held our noses because it smelled so bad. And I was up there recently, not, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and now it looks beautiful. I know that there's some pollution from GE up there, but there were trees and picnic tables and people. It's just fantastic what people have done across the country, including at these waterways and water. So I would urge you to go to the Riverkeeper, that is the nearest Riverkeeper to where you are. And I don't know whether there's one for ski activists on the Onondaga Lake in particular. Maybe there's a tribe up there. I'm sure you're working with tribal representatives up there, but I'm going to go to the nearest Riverkeeper and align with them.
It's in the Finger Lakes, so I think the interest would be in several of the Finger Lakes organizations.
I know there's a Lake George Keeper. I know there's a Hudson River Keeper. I just don't know if there's one right there. But we work in our own geography, and so we want to find the one that works in that geography.
How would you help us?
I'm sorry?
How would you help us? What would be the advantage to us?
Probably enforcement. That would be the advantage to getting involved. If there are polluters that are violating the Clean Water Act or the state water laws in New York, the Riverkeeper can do a fantastic job of investigating that pollution for you and helping you to stop it. That would be the advantage.
This is a question for Ms. Stoner. I'm curious, when you talk about how Virginia and the district have committed to you by the year 2030 to clean up their sewer discharge, what are the mechanisms or interfaces that you have to hold them to that agreement? How does that work?
So I'm going to answer that. I'm also going to let Dr. Wood answer that because she's going to have an answer too to that. So it's not a commitment to the Potomac Riverkeeper Network. They actually have a legal obligation to do this. In DC, it's through a consent decree, and the enforcement action in Virginia is through a Clean Water Act permit, discharge permit. But in both cases, they're held to it legally, and that is something that we can enforce. So the strongest tool in the Clean Water Act is called the citizen supervision. And it doesn't actually just apply only to citizens. It applies to anyone who uses a waterway and is adversely affected by pollution. That person has the right to enforce the law. Now, you probably don't want to bring your own lawsuit. That's why you need to be a member of a group like mine that can bring a lawsuit on your behalf if DC Water or if Alex Renew does not meet those obligations, which are legally done.
So I just want to compliment what Nancy said. For the Chesapeake Bay, our goals are science restoration partnership. However, if you now look at the entire EPA, we also have other aspects that we use to help the environment. Inspections, permitting, and in some cases levying fines, and in some cases litigation as well. So those are just some of the things that Nancy mentioned. But we also have those tools in our tool belt as well, and we've used them in the past to help restore the environment.
I think they mentioned the respect for the check quality of the river or the water in the boat. We live on the edge of Lake St. Clair, the short river leads inward, there is pollution everywhere. So, I don't know how to get involved. I'm involved with the water run, but anyway, I can maybe figure it out. What's the website that you look at?
The one I was mentioning is called Swim Guide, and it's used. It isn't used at absolutely every public access place because there has to be somebody who does the water quality sampling and posts the results. But there probably is somebody there who does that in the department. Check it out. Swim Guide.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm very familiar with what goes on in Alabama, because I live very close to it. The power plant in Alexandria is decommissioned. What are the issues that are different from active power plants? Because we've got that emission happening. Now we've got ground contamination and the challenge that's going to be able to the redevelopment there. This is a question for both of you.
So power plants have, when they burn coal, so they put emissions in the air, and then they, but there have been more and more controls on air pollution. So now they're in the smokestacks, they capture a lot of this coal ash, it's called. And you would be amazed to know that until very recently, state-of-the-art treatment for coal ash was to add water, put it in an unlined pit, and let it leach into the groundwater and into the river. So this has been changed. This is something EPA is still working on, which I commend them for doing. But what we have is legacy contamination in these coal ash plants. And so one of the ones we've done a lot of work on is Possum Point. I know that's not the one you asked me about. Possum Point is down in Quantico. And there is, from this coal ash, we get all these heavy metals and toxins and things that go into the groundwater, go into people's drinking water wells, leach into the Potomac and so forth. So I believe it was 2018, we worked with Virginia General Assembly to get legislation saying we have to dig up this coal ash, we need to put it in a lined pit. With leachate collection and stop it from continuing to leach into the groundwater. So we've been doing this for hazardous waste for years in the United States. I'm not saying there isn't any problem with any hazardous waste landfills, but there are controls. They're called double liners and leachate collection systems. We can do that for coal ash, it's just that we didn't require it, and so the power companies didn't do it.
So from the Chesapeake Bay perspective, when it comes to pollutants, we primarily focus on three aspects when it comes to water quality. And that's phosphorus, that's nitrogen, and that's also sediment. But those pollutants come from a variety of sources. You just mentioned wastewater treatment plants, sometimes it's stormwater, sometimes it's just people and how people are polluting the bay as well. Also think about climate and climate change and how that's factoring into our ever-evolving ecosystem. So while I do see things from a different point of view, it is important to monitor how much of these pollutants are getting into the water. And then also something that Nancy said that I really want to touch on is that it's not just water. It's water, it's air, it's land, and it's the intersectionality of the three that's really important. Those are all contributors to the bay as well as pollutants to the bay.
I have a quick comment just to show how far we have gone. In 1969, 70 or so, I was on the sailing team here at Trinity. We can even have boats, we borrow boats from Georgetown, and in order, there were two requirements to sail. You had to know how to swim, and you had to have a checklist shop. Because the trouble girl was so polluted. And once we were out there, this is Alpha National Airport, the the water was, you couldn't see below the surface of the rope dropped, what's called a line that dropped into the water. You couldn't see where it was. So a huge amount of camp has occurred, and we have a ways to go, but it's much better.
That's really great. You just share that with us.
More questions, Mr. Mayor?
This question is for Dr. Boyd. Given the reality that Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, the District of Columbia, and Virginia all have responsibilities for the Bay, I'm wondering whether your agency or other parts of the federal government are working consistently with trying to bring these, how shall I say it kindly, these partners together and living up to their responsibilities for the preservation of the Bay.
Excellent question. So one thing I did not mention is that when we think about the Chesapeake Bay program, a lot of people think about EPA because it's the EPA Chesapeake Bay program. But our office is over 112 individuals that represent not only EPA, but other federal partners such as NOAA, Department of Defense, Department of Interior, which houses USGS, as well as a total of 9 partners. So EPA is one of those 9 partners. The other partners include, like you said, the District of Columbia, 6 states. So I think I heard you say everyone except West Virginia. West Virginia is also a partner in our partnership. And then what people don't realize is that we have what's called the Chesapeake Bay Commission. And that is a group of legislators at the state and in some cases local level that work together to form policies so that we can advance restoration efforts throughout the Bay. So to answer your question, it's a collective effort to restore the Bay. It's a collective effort of all of our partners. All of our partners come together and through consensus make decisions on how to utilize resources, people, and initiatives to ultimately restore the Bay.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kandis Boyd. This program. How inspiring, how informative, the questions were great. I really want to give everybody a round of applause for sticking with us for our environmental symposium as part of our 125th anniversary. We will have a reception down the hall in Social Hall. If you want to join us down there, I have a few copies of Mary Evelyn's book here that the first takers may have. I'm sure Mary Evelyn will autograph them for you. And again, thanks to our special guests for coming. Thank you, Anissa, for the introduction.